Welcome. Man, I've been excited about this for what we met 4 months ago, I think,
something like
in
that.
Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
And where we met, this is Cort Smith, major in the Oklahoma City Fire Department. He's wearing a lot of hats over there, but right now his biggest passion is training and making the best darn firefighters in the country, maybe in the world. Now that we're bragging, but we're Oklahoma City and we're setting a trend. So welcome, Cort.
Yeah, thank you. That's the goal anyway. Make them as good as we can.
Well, I met you at the Oklahoma City training facility, and I was blown away. You guys were having a training with the OKC Fools, which is basically a bunch of different fire departments coming in to utilize the training techniques. So there's one day of training in class, and then the next day is actually hands-on. I couldn't believe it. I mean, these guys, like, I was scared for them going into these houses that they were. It was a tower, seven floor tower.
Yeah.
That was how many degrees does that get?
Oh, and the burn pods, we can get it north of about 1,000 at the ceiling.
Yeah, no, thank you.
It's good fun though. It's a lot of fun.
What do you do for Saturdays for fun? Well, I go into 1,000-degree temperature. I can't see. I try to rescue people.
Yeah, so the America Fools OKC, it's basically, for lack of a better word, it's like a club for firemen, and we welcome guys from all different departments. Most of the guys who run it are from Oklahoma City. We've got a few other guys from like Edmond, but guys come from all over the state. And that event that you're talking about, we call that, it's an annual event. We call it Spring Break Your Habits. And so we'll, like you said, we'll do one day in the class, and then the next day is pretty much all hands-on. And we'll have different tracks guys can go through, VES, force and doors, fire attack, all the stuff, and then it culminates in a whole afternoon of live fire training.
Cort, is it individuals that come to that, or departments, or is it just kind of a mix of both?
It's pretty much just individuals. Now,
okay.
we'll sometimes get several guys from one department come out, but it's something like we try to charge as little as we can, because a lot of these guys come from very small departments and they don't have a training budget. Yeah. And for some of these guys, this is the only training they get, So we have that, and then in October, this year in September, we have our annual conference. It's another 2-day conference.
We're going to be there.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. That'll be pretty cool. That's a little bit bigger event. We'll probably have, I don't know, close to 200 people there. Whereas spring break, it's usually like 50 or so. But it's a similar setup, though.
One of the things that was really cool when I was there, I got to just kind of mill around and talk with folks from different areas. And the one thing that really stood out to me was how many of them said, I can't believe how cool and how great and how effective this training is. This is the state of Oklahoma, and we don't have it. And I'm so honored to be able to come out here and train. And that's what you're doing. That's such a key thing, is how do you become more effective at what you do and safer at what you do?
Well, yeah, and we also travel. We'll go to small departments and put on schools there, because we've got a trailer with all of our gear in it, so we can go set up for forcible entry training, VES training, whatever it is. And they all love our price tag. It's free every time. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, we're a registered nonprofit, so we're happy to go out and train guys. And we may charge for fuel if it's like a really long drive or something, but generally speaking, it's free.
Just in the state of Oklahoma? You guys stay local, or I say local, statewide?
Yeah, pretty much just in the state. Yeah.
So when we talked earlier, we were taking a tour, because this is the first time you've seen the Warriors Rest facility, and I was just awe-inspired of your reaction to the vision of what Brett has over here. And then we started talking about your dad, because your dad was in firefighting for 30 years.
Yeah.
Can you just share the story? Just give us your impression of what you saw here and what you think.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm over the moon with this place. I mean, I'm so impressed, truly impressed with what's going on and what you guys have available here and are planning to have available. It's really a great thing you guys are doing. But yeah, like I said, my dad, he was firefighter for 30 years. He got on the job in '79 and then retired in '09, about 6 months after I got on the job. So kind of passing the torch. And kind of a little side note, he retired as a major. So when I promoted to major, he gave me his hardware from his uniform. So I actually wear his.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I wear his Oakleys, and we have the same name, so I have his name tag on, and I think that's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Very cool.
That's very cool.
But yeah, I'm always real proud of him. I was, grew up with the fire service, I always loved going up to the station and visiting and climbing around on the rigs like all the little kids do, you know. But yeah, he had a hell of a career. He did respond to the Murrah bombing. That was a huge event, obviously. Unfortunately, I kind of feel like he's got some issues now, like a lot of firemen do, and that's why I'm so impressed with what you guys have here. I'm really going to try to get him to come and visit this place and see what you guys have to offer, because I think it could benefit him. I think it could benefit just about any retiree, you know, regardless of what they've seen.
Yeah, it is, and the retiree side of it is something. I mean, we do quite a bit with the retirees and stuff, but they're kind of the forgotten group, right? We're starting to see this change within the first responder world to where, hey, you know what, working on your mental and emotional health that's a good thing, right? We want to make sure you're staying at the top of your game. Well, that group, it was, even when I came on with the patrol, that's not something we talked about. It was that old school mentality of, you know what, suck it up, it's part of the job. Well, you know what, you can still function, but it doesn't always work out well for you, right? Especially after you retire. So the retirees that's a untapped group of men and women that have been in the first responder world that are still carrying a lot of stuff, especially with the stuff like the Murrah bombing, and then just with the day-to-day stuff that they see and that they deal with. And having a career of 30 years on the fire department that's extraordinary.
Well, and coming up, you know, kind of, they call them the warriors in certain parts of the country, but those guys, you know, doing the job the way they did it, I mean, they didn't wear air packs, you know, they just went in. Like, you graduated rookie school back then, you had to be able to hold your breath for a minute, because that's just what you did. You got off the rig, took a deep breath and ran in, and then you work for, I mean, you hold your breath as long as you can, then you just start eating smoke, and then, you know, as my dad tells me, like, you come out, you throw up in the front yard, blow some black stuff out of your nose, and then get back in there.
Get right back in
and
there.
It's like, man, that's why when I'm training recruits now, I always keep those guys in mind, because, you know, I always say the same thing, like, firefighters now, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and I don't think we pay enough respect to all those who came before us. I'm trying to turn that around, because if you look at the Essentials Manual, which is the IFSTA, kind of the governing body of fire training is IFSTA, and we'll probably talk about them later, but that Essentials Manual, it doesn't have a word about firefighting history in it. Not a word. It doesn't even talk about Ben Franklin or anything. You know, like all these huge names from our history, and there's nothing in there about it. And it's almost depressing when you think about it. It's like we're trying to lose our traditions and our history, and that's really, so going back to the Fools, that's the whole reason that the Fools exists. It's not just to train guys. We're trying to keep the brotherhood alive and keep the traditions
community
alive. Yeah. Fools stands for Fellowship of Old Leatherhead Society, and because back in the day, that's what they wore. Their helmets were made of leather, and some of us, you know, we bought it. Like, I've got a leather. You know, a lot of the guys in the Fools have leathers, and that's just one small thing we do. But you know, big picture, we're trying to keep, you know, the traditions and all that stuff alive.
Well, that's one of, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, standing on the shoulders of giants. That is very well said. I've never heard that. That is 100% with the patrol. I've kind of felt the same way. I mean, there's so many that came before us, and a lot of the respect and stuff that we had from the public came because of those old schoolers, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, and there's small groups and small pods and stuff. But even in the academy, we go through an 18 to 20-week academy, and there's not a ton of history that's talked about. Now, we have to look at those that have been lost in the line of duty. We each were given somebody to memorize the story and all that stuff. But overall, just looking at the history, and there is so much history with, I'm sure, the Oklahoma City Fire Department, with the Highway Patrol, and there's guys running around out there now that have no clue. They have no idea.
Yep.
And we are missing so much, and the ability to sit down and talk with those men and women and listening to their stories about how they used to do stuff, right? Because they didn't have the technology, they didn't have the training. They just, hey, buckle up, let's go, let's ride. Yeah, and that's very well said.
The technology thing, I've talked to my dad about this. So now we've got, you know, computers on the rigs, and they've got like Google Maps and stuff. That's how we map our way in. You know how they did it back in the old days, back in the 80s? they just drove around the district and hand drew their maps, and they marked the plugs, they marked every address. He told me that. I was like, I mean, I can't imagine the kind of pride you could take in your job if you're putting that kind of work into it. And yes, I don't know, it's kind of off topic, I guess, but I ask my recruits every single class. I always ask them towards the end. I'll say, how many of you guys like telling people you're a fireman? And everyone, I'll raise my hand. I love telling people I'm a fireman. Yeah. And I ask them, why do you like that though? How does the public respond when you say that? They revere us, Mm-hmm. They immediately conjure up these images of like the guys from Backdraft or some dude with like a baby in his arms running through flames and all that stuff. So that's what the public thinks of us. Mm. And it doesn't matter who you are on the department. They don't know, and I told the recruits this, they don't know that you haven't done anything. You're not even real firemen yet. They don't know that. All they know is you're a fireman, and they look at you like that. Yeah. But the reason they do is because all the people from our past, that's who they're picturing. They picture the Murrah bombing, they picture 9/11. Well, you're part of that now. You're part of this culture. So you need to respect it, and you need to leave it better than you found it, And we run into guys all the time who seem to forget that.
I think what's really important about this conversation is two things. If you don't know your past, how you gonna not repeat some of the failures that you had or things that need to have happen. One of which is the fact what we're going to talk about is you're noticing like we can be better. We can be better at training, and we're going to get into that. Mm-hmm. And then to what you say, Brett, is that it's okay not to be okay. You just can't stay there.
Yeah.
Well, then how do we fix that? And if we don't address the issue of the things that you guys see on a daily basis, and that's what Warriors Rest is going to be even one of the finest places you're going to find. And as you said, and this was pretty good, I'm explaining what we're doing here, and Cort goes, you're going to make PTS a thing of the past. And I was like, wait a minute.
That's the goal. That's the goal. It doesn't matter. And either way, right? I mean, there's such a balance in this. And I'm excited to kind of hear everything that you've done. Just so you know, I've got two sons. So I've got one that's graduated college, one that's getting ready to. And I cop for almost 27 years, highway patrol for almost 27 years. I screwed both my boys up enough that they want to go drag a hose for a living.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I really messed them up. No, I'm ecstatic. They both want to be firefighters. I got one's getting ready. He's starting an application, going through his EMT right now. I mean, he is fired up. But we have had that conversation of making sure on the training side of it that you get as much training as possible, whether it's from your department, outside your department, and that. And then the balance to that is you can have all the training in the world, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're not dealing with those traumas and dealing with the stuff that you're going to see, that part of the job
it's baked in.
That part of the job is not going away. So mentally and emotionally, physical fitness, nutrition, right? All that stuff, you better be handling that stuff too. And there's such a balance in there that can make you so much better, so much more effective. And then at the end of the day, it's coming off a 30-year career in the fire department and enjoying your retirement. Being in a good place where you can enjoy your retirement and your loved ones and stuff are still around you, still want to be around you, right?
Yeah.
And that balance is something that we have to find that. It's been so out of balance for so long. You guys are fixing this with your training and everything, and then to come alongside and the mental and emotional side of it, making sure we're in a good place too is paramount. I mean, we have to do that. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our families.
Well, if that's what you really want for your sons, send them to me.
I will.
We'll get them ready.
Hey, we have talked about it. I got one that is. He's got one more year of college and baseball left, and they're all in. That's what they want to do for years and years. That's all they've talked about. I never pushed the law enforcement on them, and I'm good with that. But I'm honored that they want to be able to go out and be public servants and do it in the fire side of it. I'm excited for them.
That's great.
Yeah.
Tell us about your childhood.
I
kind of get this feeling that you may have been a rascal. You may have been like not seriously a rule breaker, but I'm going to see if I can make something different, better.
I was absolutely a rule breaker. I was a terrible kid, all the way up through high school. So I grew up in Oklahoma City, and when I was in high school, my junior year of high school, we moved out to Cashin, which is just a small farm community, So that was a big shift. I went from a graduating class of like 600 to a graduating class of 32. But I loved it. I loved living out there in the country. It was cool. But yeah, all I did was party through high school. I graduated with like a D- average, and yeah, there's.
That's funny that you're now training people.
Yeah, right.
You graduated with a D-. Okay.
Yeah, I barely graduated high school, and then obviously college wasn't, for me. I wasn't even going to try that, so that's when I decided to go join the military, join the Air Force. And
So you had 12 years or 13 years in the Air Force.
I had 12. Well, technically, I had 11 years active, and then I stuck around D.C. when I got out for a year when I was going through the hiring process for the fire department. But I was doing the same exact job, just as a civilian.
Okay.
But yeah, so basically 12 years of service.
So what was fulfilling, if you can, and then unfulfilling about the Air Force for you?
The fulfilling part for me was just the idea of service. Serving something bigger than yourself has always been, pretty important to me. I loved wearing the uniform. Liked being a member of the Air Force. My grandfather was in the Air Force, so I was glad he and I could share that. And the work itself was pretty fulfilling. Especially my last few years, I was working a direct support mission. I worked in intelligence, but I was working a direct support mission to the war fighters in Afghanistan. And just knowing we were having such a direct impact there, that was pretty fulfilling for me as well.
Was there anything that you felt like you didn't get out of the Air Force?
Well,
you were looking for?
Yeah, I'm not built to sit behind a computer, and that's exactly what I did. So I was a linguist. And
yeah, tell us, because I love guys like you because you're so humble. You don't want to, like you say, well, I didn't go to college because it wasn't right for me. Doesn't mean you weren't smart. Like,
oh yeah. Well, yeah. So I went in as a linguist. First, I learned Russian, and I worked as a Russian linguist doing strategic intelligence for about 5 years. And then 9/11 happened, and pretty soon after that, they wanted experienced linguists to go and learn other languages to support the war effort. So I went to D.C. for a year and learned Hindi and Urdu. I learned those at the same time.
Isn't that wild?
But,
wow.
It's not as impressive as you think.
That's pretty impressive to me.
The spoken language is almost identical, but learning the different scripts was really tough. But I did that, and then I stuck around D.C. Well, I went to Virginia for a year, and then went back to D.C. and I worked at the NSA for about 4 or 5 years until I got out.
Incredible. Yeah.
All right. So how did 4 languages?
Yeah. If you count English. Yeah.
And then I want to move on, but you're listening to chatter, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, what's the enemy saying, can you expound on that?
Well, without getting into anything classified, yeah, you're basically right. We were listening for where the bad guys were, and then if we could locate them, then I could feed that information either to a fighter or bomber in the air or to guys on the ground. And depending on their location, we could say, yeah, there's like 20 enemy over here. They could just run over there and do their job, or just drop a bomb,
So you lived out basically what we get to watch on a movie. That was you.
Yeah. It wasn't glamorous. I mean, the people, like, you see the NSA building in movies and stuff, NSA
Right.
headquarters. It's nothing like that. It's like
Never is.
No, it's like a crappy old warehouse. Looks like a high school from the 50s, like cinder block walls and stuff. And
The old gymnasium.
Yeah, right. And you think about like retinal scanners and stuff. I saw literally one room in the entire building that had a retinal scanner. And yeah, it was. I mean, it's kind of neat being able to say that, I worked at NSA, but it wasn't. It's nothing like that movie. What's the movie? The one, the Sky. The spy. Snowden.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Edward Snowden.
Yeah. So in the movie, they show him like going to great lengths to hide these thumb drives and blah blah blah, and he's like doing all this stuff. No, man. I walked out of that building with a big folder that had red and white markings all over it. Said "Top Secret SCI." I just walked right out, and it was totally by mistake. I just forgot I had it in my hand, and I got all the way to my car, started, and it was about to pull off post, and that's when I saw. I was like, "Oh man, I got to take that back." And then I was like, "Wait a minute! I just walked out of that."
No, it's a word.
Yeah.
Well, how did that prepare you for fire department? And then did you why right into the fire department? Did your dad have an influence, or you just felt like you wanted to serve more?
Well, yeah. So like I said, I stayed around DC for a year as a consultant with the NSA, and that was immediately a shock to my system. It was so nerve-wracking just trying to figure out what I want to wear today, to go into work. So I immediately missed being in a uniform, and I knew I wanted to continue to serve in some capacity. And so obviously my dad being a firefighter, the fire service seemed like a pretty natural transition, and I'd go back home and do all that. So I think I guess being in the Air Force, the only way it prepared me for fire was, I have respect for rank and respect for structure and discipline. So that was probably the primary impact from the Air Force days anyway.
Did having a first responder as a father of 30 years, how hard was that for you?
It wasn't really hard for me. I guess growing up with it, you just kind of take it for granted that, dad's going to be away on certain days, it's just part of it. The bombing was kind of tough when the Murrah bombing happened because we didn't see him for at least a couple of weeks because he was down there working the scene. But I was always, as tough as that was, sitting at home with my mom every night watching TV and, or watching the news, and that building, it looked like it was going to fall over at any second.
Absolutely.
And I was kind of nerve-wracking watching that. But we were really proud of the work he was doing. And so do you know the story about that girl that they found that amputated her leg to get her out?
I've briefly heard the story.
Yeah, I believe she was the last survivor they got out. My dad and his crew were the ones that found her, and they had to dig down to her and got it, and then they let that surgeon in there. So I thought I've always been really proud of that story. But yeah, that was probably the only time it was really hard, was watching the news every night, waiting for that building to fall.
Could he compartmentalize that at home, or did you see some after effect for a while after that?
Well, he never really talked about it. And most of those guys won't.
Yeah.
In fact, he's never been to the memorial downtown.
Wow.
Most of those guys that I know that responded there, they've never even seen the memorial. And he never will. I'm convinced he's never going to go to that. And I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to relive that either. But he compartmentalized it pretty hard. And then, I just never really brought it up.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back for the second part. All right, welcome back to the Scars Podcast, second part. This is going to be the meat of the discussion, and I'm really excited about getting into this because it talks about what you're doing for the Oklahoma City Fire Department and really the nation. Think about it. What was your training like when you went through the fire department, and did you feel like it made you almost an unsafe firefighter?
Yes. So the training I went through in 2008.
Sorry I had to ask it that way, but that's.
In 2008, it was the training division then was a lot like a lot of other training divisions even now, where it's we had a few guys who were older, trying to add a few more years onto their pension and stuff like that. They didn't really want to train much, and it was kind of a joke, really. I was really let down because I knew some some stuff about the fire service. I knew it was really hard. You had to be strong, whatever. So I prepared. I trained for months, and I was expecting a boot camp, of sorts, and it was not that. When we go to the drill field, we'd have like 30 guys standing in line to go one at a time to like pull a line, and then we'd reload it, and then the next guy pull a line. It was tons and tons of standing around and just wasted time. And and I knew I wasn't prepared for the rigs. The first day I showed up at the station, at Station 1, my first rotation, and the first thing they said was, "Forget everything you learned at rookie school. We're gonna teach you how to do it." And I was like, "You got to be kidding me, man!" And then we started really training, and I realized immediately I had a lot of work to do. And I mean, back then I was super skinny. I think I showed up to rookie school weighing 175, and I'm 6'3", right?
Yeah.
By the time I graduated, because the only thing we did do that was a little bit challenging was run, but that's all we did was run every day.
Yeah.
And so I left rookie school weighing 158 pounds.
Oh, wow. So you did lose some.
Yeah. And I was skinny, really weak, and now I'm doing the real stuff with these real firemen, and it's really hard. And I was like, oh, I got to get strong. And so for the next 9 months or whatever it was, 8-9 months, all I did was eat chicken and lift, and train at the station, and put on like 40 pounds, by the end of my first year. But that whole thing taught me, like, at the time, I never dreamed I would ever train recruits. I figured I would just train guys at the station. And so that's what I did for a long time. But it taught me like what it really takes to train firefighters, because that's what I had to do. That's what I had to do to learn how to function on a fire ground. I had to train all the time with the guys in my crew, and anyway, fast forward to when I did start running academies for the department. My first and really only goal at the time was I wanted it to be the opposite of what I had in '08.
Was there something that happened? Like, okay, so you said, forget everything you learned. What does that even mean? Like, what were they talking about? Forget everything you learned. We're going to train you our way, or?
Well, really, kind of in a way, they were saying they were acknowledging that we didn't learn anything. So we learned the book work, which to this day is still trash. So definitely forget all that stuff you learned. But also, I think like one of the primary jobs for a new firefighter on the back of the rig is to catch a plug on the way to a fire. That's how we're going to hook up the hydrant, get the water.
Okay, so you got to talk. I'm a cop.
Right.
Catch a plug. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That sounds like a bad thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, a plug equals fire hydrant.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, but when you're the new guy on the back, you roll up to a fire, the officer will yell, "New boy, catch that plug." That's what we call recruits in Oklahoma City. We call them new boys. But anyway, they'd say, "New boy, catch that plug." You jump off the rig, go back, grab the end of the big supply hose, run it to the fire hydrant, wrap it around it, and say go. And then the rig will take off, and then your job is to hook up to the hydrant and turn it in. And so it's absolutely a critical skill for a recruit firefighter. In the rookie school that I went to, in 4 months, I caught one plug. And
Wow.
And I was like, man. Yeah,
the lifeline of fighting a fire, and you did that one time.
One time, yeah. And it was just, we were I can't tell you how many times we'd be sitting in the classroom after lunch, not knowing what we're doing in the afternoon, and one of the majors there would poke his head in the room and say, "Y'all just study your books till it's time to go home." I mean, that was like all the time,
Oh, gosh. That's like the history teacher that's the coach, and they're like, I don't know, just do something so I can get to practice.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Do you think they did that knowing what was going to happen when they got to the station?
I think there was part of that, because it was probably the same thing that happened to them.
And that's what I was wondering. Look, we had the same. We called them rods, retired on duty, right? This guy, we had those guys in certain positions and stuff. Don't be a rod, retired on duty, and it really was that even. Now I had great guys in my academy, but it's kind of the same philosophy. You get out there and you get in a patrol car, and it was like, okay, now the real training starts. Right now, it's not the best time to do it though.
Right. Yeah. Because now it's like, oh well, we might die.
Yeah. Yeah. It could cost somebody. It could cost me my life or somebody else's. Or I got to imagine if you miss that plug, that it pretty much screws everything up from that point forward till somebody gets control of it.
It certainly can. Yeah. Until somebody else comes and catches the plug.
Sure.
Yeah. You're kind of screwed.
Was there a turning point that you go through training, you have no idea, I'm not doing training, that's not even in my wheelhouse or thought, but something happened, you're like, that's it, I'm done.
Kind of, yeah. There's I think it was probably 2011. So I was a corporal at that time, and I was working at Station 8, which back then Station 8 did all the special ops for the department, and we made a lot of fires. So we're making fires all the time, but then we're also doing rope rescue, trench rescue.
Explain special ops in firefighting. What does that mean?
So that's like more technical rescue disciplines. So you got to go to a lot of extra training, but you become like a rope rescue technician. I mean, you can go down and pick people off and hoist them up, stuff like that. We learned swiftwater rescue. We were rescue divers. You do trench rescue, confined space rescue, all this stuff. So like, for example, if there's like a building collapse, that's who they're going to send in to go, crawling through the rubble and trying to get people out. So that crew was like 100. It was just a big group of alphas. We're just all big dudes, and all we did was lift all the time and then train. That's all we did. And it was kind of the cool thing is like, I mean, I don't know, other people in the department are like, oh, eights guys, hoot. But but for us, it was like this mystique, and we really enjoyed it. We took a lot of pride in it. So anyway, in 2011, the fire service, they have this thing called Safety Stand Down Week, where all training ceases for a week, and you just train on like health and wellness and safety stuff and whatever. And the fire chief used to do an open forum down at the schoolhouse, and there'd be like 50 or 60 guys in there, and he would catch us up on goings on in the department, and then he would open up the floor, and it would just turn into a big gripe session, And so notice all these majors, these guys like 20, 25 years on, every one of them, their chief complaint was weak recruits. We're getting weak recruits out in the field. And every single one of them was saying that. And I was like, so, you know, me with my 15 minutes on the job, I decided to raise my hand. And chief called on me. I said, sir, the academy needs to just be harder. And he's like, well, we're kind of bound by these IFSTA things that we do. I was like, well, not necessarily that, but just the whole environment needs to be tougher. And then I made the statement. I said, if you want Spartans, you got to train like Spartans.
Ooh, yeah.
So all these majors looked at us eights guys like, oh, we got a bunch of Spartans over there at eights, I guess. And they're all laughing at us and stuff. And I was like, all right. You know, so then that was when I was like, I might run a class one of these days, you know. And then
that's when it first entered your mind.
Yeah.
It's almost like they drew the line in the sand for you.
Kind of, yeah. They're like, okay, new boy, let's see you do it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And a couple years later, I promoted to sergeant, and it was 2015, and I promoted. Oh, I'm sorry, 14. I promoted. Then in 2015, a class was fixing to start, and they put a call out to the field for field training officers and mentors, which those are guys who come in from the field just to train the academy, and then they go back to their rigs. So I put in to be an FTO and got accepted, and I was. The training staff then, it was kind of similar to the one that I had in 08, you know, and I didn't really have like a super big plan in place, but I just had this idea, you know, one, I want to make it really scary, and two, I want to train on the drill field much differently, you know, than what I did or what I had. And so I remember that first day, I went out there and I'm guns blazing. Those kids are like out in the parking lot, and I'm yelling at them, you know, making them do push-ups and all this stuff.
Drill instructor.
Oh, dude, totally. And this training major came out there, and he said, hey, man, come into the conference room with me. And so I did, and he's like, man, this first day, we like to just kind of take it easy. You know, we want to kind of see what their personalities are. And I said, well, with respect, you're doing it wrong. And their personality is whatever I tell them it is. And,
nice.
And he's like, well, all right, if you know what you're doing. It's like, I know what I'm doing. So I kept going, and then so there was that, just me screaming like a maniac.
Well,
at people.
So I got a question on that, and I'm fascinated with stuff like this because of the way that we ran our academy. Right?
I'm familiar with yours, so you know what I'm talking about.
So why did you feel like that was the way to go or appropriate?
Well, to me, if you're going to, so to me, the absolute foundation, the cornerstone of everything is discipline. So if you're going to instill that kind of discipline in a large group of people, the most tried and true method I know of is fear.
Yep.
Get them scared, you know. And so that's what I did, and it worked. But then on the drill field, I had this idea. I wanted, instead of like most typical recruit academies, they do everything the same way. They'll have like ground ladder week and then handline week and search week. So you may go 3-4 weeks or even more without even touching a ladder, for example. And, you know, so you got a lot of skill degradation and stuff like that. Well, I had an idea if we could build skill stations and do everything at the same time, you know, but you should just do it in little chunks, right? So like there's this book called The Talent Code, and I read that and it changed my whole training concept, you know. So we put it in place. And it was working. It worked really well. It was a challenge because, like I said, the guys who were at training at the time, they weren't real interested in coming down the drill ground. So it was me and the mentor, a guy named Rob Gilkison, who's a great firefighter. It was me and him and 58 recruits in like 6 different stations. So all day it was just me running to one group, like, what are you doing? Show it to me. All right, do it more like this. Okay, good. Everybody see it. All right, get reps. And then run to another group, you know. So it was a lot of work, but it worked out really well. It was a fantastic class. And then they graduated, and then 3 weeks later, another one was going to start, and they asked if I would just hang out and do another one, so I did that. And then after the 15-2 class, I was done. I was like, okay, I'm never training another recruit. You know, I'm going back out to the field, be a real fireman again. And that was my plan. Didn't work out that way, but.
So what you were doing didn't really get adopted then? Like, in other words, you showed them, well, I don't know. Did you show them something different? Like that class came out, even with that little bit of fingerprints that you put on, did they see a difference when they went on their trucks?
Oh, absolutely. That was the best class we had in years, like years. And people saw it, and the guys were telling me like, man, that's a good job. You did a good job with those guys. And I was like, well, thanks. Hopefully they keep doing well. But yeah, it was a total departure from what we had done in the past.
Yeah.
But the command didn't adopt it, doesn't sound like. After you left after that couple classes.
No, not really. I left, and then we didn't hire anybody in 2016. But then in 2017, there were 3 classes, and I didn't have anything to do with any of those classes. I was happy on my rig. And but then I started seeing the recruits come out to the field, and they weren't bad, but they just weren't doing the stuff that we did that I thought was important, and they just came out with, just a little bit less knowledge, or some of the techniques they were using were kind of weird, kind of outdated, and so then in 2018, another class was announced, and I went in and put in for that one, and they're like, yeah, you're in. And so that time when I went back as an FTO, there was another guy on the staff. That's my brother, Justin Lorenzen, who we all call J-Lo. He was part of the
Great
staff.
guy.
Yeah. And he and I, once we started working together and bouncing ideas off each other, that's when it really came into fruition and became what it is now. That one class, like the 15 class changed everything. The 18 class is what really made the program.
And I know you discussed with me that you came up with an ethos. Like finally, when you said, "I'm solidly in this training thing. I'm going to make it mine. I'm going to make it I'm going to continue to evolve this thing into greatness." You came up with an ethos, and I'd like you to discuss that.
Are you talking about our end of the day thing?
No, your four pillars that you work on that you think is something that you keep in mind.
Oh yeah, speed, intensity, aggression. Yeah. So speed, intensity, aggression, violence. Sorry. Those are our 4. That's how we operate on the drill field. And I always tell guys, if you're failing at anything, like getting a victim out, forcing a door, whatever it is, you need to increase your level of one of those 4 things, maybe 2. If the door's not going, you need to increase your level of violence. If you're struggling to get a victim out, you need to increase your intensity. And yeah, that's worked pretty well for us.
Was that well received? I mean, because I don't know, this weird, like the last 5. We'll get into this, but like, oh, you can't say violence. That sounds too harsh. I mean, but that's what it is. It's not an easy job. Did you get pushback when you start to implement some of the vernacular?
No, not really. As far as I know, if there was any pushback, nobody told me about it.
Yeah. But it's guided you to.
It's working.
Yeah. If people ask me about it, I'd say the violence we're talking about. So it's subtlety of technique and violence of action. Because if you're forcing a door that's really hard to force, you have to get violent with it. And there's no other good word for that. It's a violent action.
Yeah.
Some violence is okay, especially if it's in the service of saving lives. Yeah,
Right.
We're going to get violent.
And so I know, because I've seen it, one of the things that I picked up on your trainings is that there's no standing around. There's no downtime. And I've had the opportunity and been able to teach a little bit of football. And so when we go through the skills early in the season, I don't want to see anybody standing around unless it's a water break. And so I see that about you and how your training goes. Tell us a little bit about that process or what your thoughts are on.
So that all comes from like one kind of core idea. By the end of the recruit academy, each individual recruit, our goal for them is to be able to work at 100% of their physical capacity, wearing 60 plus pounds of gear in terrible conditions without slowing down or taking a break for 15 minutes. Because if everybody on the fire ground can do that, the fire's out and the house is searched with the first 3 companies, maybe even the first 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in order to facilitate that, we get them very used to wearing their gear all day long with a pack, no breaks, just keep working, keep grinding, And it's not for everybody, obviously. We lose about 15% of each class, but the rest of them, I'd say a few weeks in, like 4 or 5 weeks in, something just clicks and they just accept it. Like, this is my life now. I'm gonna get up, put my gear on, get my ass kicked all day, and then come home, lick my wounds, and get up and do it again.
But that's where it should be tested, right? It should be tested in training in a controlled environment, so that if something doesn't work or if they get in a bad spot, then we got people there to hate, right? Not out when they're doing the freaking job.
Right.
And that's the thing with the high stress. Again, with the patrol high stress academy, it's there for a reason. We want to make it as tough on them as possible in a controlled environment, knowing that it's going to get tough someday. They need to know what their limits are. They need to know, and it's a mindset. It's like you said, when it clicks, they're in. And they might not consciously think about it, but when they get out there in the field and they've had to keep that pack on for an extra 10 minutes or what, I don't know how all that works, but they're going to like, yeah, this is nothing. Right. Because I used to go an entire day with this stuff on. And that's where it should happen.
Yeah, I don't want their first experience being in a pack for 4 or 5 hours to be on our first big commercial fire, you know? And that's how we train everything. We do everything the hard way. So, you know, in the fire service, generally speaking, for tack lines, we use either 1 3/4 or 2.5 inch. 2.5 inch is pretty unwieldy. It's difficult to maneuver with. It's difficult to control. It's about 109 pounds of reaction pushing back on you. Gosh. Well, most academies, they may get a few days of training with the 2.5, and it's usually towards the end. Our recruits only train with the 2.5 for the first 2 months. You know,
completely makes sense.
Yeah, the way we do ladders, you know, on an engine, you got a 14-foot roof ladder and you got a 24-foot extension ladder. The 24-foot ladder weighs about 72 pounds. Well, that's the first and only ladder they touch for the first 2 months because it's harder to throw.
Man,
but we also teach techniques that make everything very manageable if you're doing it right. You know.
Do you feel like, obviously they're getting better prepared than they were before? This idea that, man, you can be anything you want to be if you just put your mind to it. Is everybody made to be a fireman?
No, definitely not. In fact, I usually tell my recruits if they're starting to waver, I'll tell them like, hey, not everyone's made out to be not everybody's cut out to be a firefighter. Not every firefighter is cut out for Oklahoma City. But obviously your mindset will take you a very long way, you know. But at some point, you've got to have, you know, some strength, some stamina, and the will to just make it happen.
You're making this more of, you're in the upper echelon if you want to make it on the OKC Fire Department. Do you see groups that want to challenge you? In other words, when you talk about like some services, let's say you want to be a Black Hawk helicopter pilot, for example, and I've got a buddy that is, in a simulator, they're going to make you do so much that you will fail. They're going to keep adding things on until finally you fail. They just want to know where you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Are you doing any of that, like with certain trainings that you have?
I think just it happens naturally. There's nothing intended for that purpose, you know. But with some stuff, you're gonna hit failure. Everybody will at some point in that academy. You're gonna reach your limit, and I kind of celebrate it when people do. You know, if I see some kid go down because he's just got nothing left, I pick him up. I say, "That's your limit." They're like, "Yes, sir." I was like, "Good. Tomorrow you're gonna be stronger."
Love it.
And yeah, so everybody reaches their limit in some way at some point in that academy.
Brett,
I think in that could be physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
It can be any of that stuff. And I think even when you get in, I think that's where, if it's not trained in an academy setting, or if there's not continuing education and stuff on that, there's a lot of times that physically they can go way further than what their brain will go, right? Or if you start stacking those traumas and stuff up, then that's when if we're not training our brains on the mental and emotional side of it, not just to do the job, but to handle what we do or see what we see during the job, then that can break just as easy as we can physically, right?
That brings up a great point. Like, is there any way that you train that piece of it? I mean, I know I work in surgery, so I know what burning flesh smells like. It's not great.
Yeah.
How do you train that? How do you mentally prepare for something like that? Is it possible? I mean, this is a grotesque question, but what?
I guess for the longest time, I did what all the old timers did. I told the kids, "Yeah, you're going to see some weird stuff. You're going to see some bad stuff. Suck it up and press on." You know, the way I used to put it to the recruits, and I was not as educated in this as I am now, so forgive me. But I would tell them it's all about perception. You know, like I can divorce myself from emotion pretty readily when I need to. So I've never removed a dead child from a house fire. Now I have picked up a sack of meat and bones and moved it from one place to the other, but I've never picked up a dead child. You know, And that was pretty much the extent of my, knowledge as far as how to cope with the stress of the job. We've come a long way in that. Like, for example, a couple of years ago, we hired a lady named Sarah Parks, who's a licensed clinical social worker. You know Sarah?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome. I love her. And she's helped me with a lot of things in the academy. Well, this academy, I've actually convinced her to be on the team, and she's 2 days a week for the first hour of the day. She has the whole class just to herself, and the goal there is to get them to kind of realign their perceptions, as I understand it. Now, she's the doctor, but we want them to have more of a challenge response to everything than a threat response, because physiologically the effect is much different, And there's a lot of other things she's got planned. She showed me her syllabus. I understood about a third of it. I was like, I trust you. I think you're going to be great. But I'm using her as we're calling it a cognitive performance coach. And so I'm really excited to see what comes from that, because I think it's definitely going to be a lot better than what I did in the past. Now, in the past, we've always had access to like the peer support team. We had the chaplain for the longest time. We still do, but now we also have Sarah. And those were avenues, those were outlets we could use, but no recruit was ever going to come to me and say, sir, I need counseling or something. It just wasn't going to happen.
And you normally don't see the breakdown. Like when you're in mission mode, because of the training they go through in the academy, they're going to get the job done.
Yeah.
Right? It's when they go back to the station, they get off the rig, and then they go crawl in the bunk, and they got time to start processing stuff in their brain. Yeah. And if that's not trained for, then that's where they can, like it'll scare you. You start having flashbacks or triggers or anything like that. And at some point, we've all had them, right? Is to, hey, I'm not crazy. This is how a body reacts to this. It's how a brain reacts to this. Having that groundwork laid in there that she's doing there's so many departments that aren't willing to even touch that with a 30-foot pole right now, right? So the fact that you guys are doing that's awesome. And that's where you get longevity out of your men and women.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's where you get longevity. You put a lot of time and effort, and if you're looking from the top down, you're putting a lot of money into it, right? To have somebody come on and be on for 5 years and have a couple of significant events and them check out. That's not good business, right? And then on the personal side, we need to be taking care of our men. We need to be giving them those tools, just because we're human beings. And what affects me might not affect you, or vice versa. It doesn't mean that it's not the way that we're supposed to react to it.
Right. And Sarah's even going so far as to develop this family academy.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It used to be one night, and I won't say who, but a certain guy would come in and talk to the families. And he would stand up there and he would say, it's all doom and gloom. Okay, you guys are probably, if you're lucky enough to survive to retirement, you're going to be an alcoholic. You're all going to get divorced. You're probably going to kill yourself. And it's like, and I'd heard about it, and I was pretty furious, because one class he did, I wasn't there, but a number of those guys' wives were begging them to quit. They didn't want.
Wait a minute. What was his point?
He felt like he was preparing them for the absolute worst case scenario. But
it's like if Chris Farley came in to try to tell you, don't be, you're going to live
but that was
by the river.
That was kind of the old school mentality, though, Chad.
Yeah. But there was
But
there was no solution. Okay, let's say that is possible. There's no solutions for it. There's no preventative.
It wasn't accepted to go get help. It was, this is how it is.
And he would tell them that, and in the hopes, like, I think in his mind he was saying, these are the things that you wives need to be prepared for. Yeah. And so when your husband comes home and he's all, pissed off or whatever and starts drinking, it's probably because of the job. It's not because he doesn't love you, But like you're saying, there's no solution there, right? And I heard that, and so the next time he came down, I stuck around after hours and sat in on his talk, and he did the same spiel, and I saw these wives just like wide-eyed, like, what in the hell? And he asked me if I had anything to add. And I was like, I'm glad you asked. And
as a matter of fact, I do.
And he got,
there you go.
Yeah, he left the room, and I said, first of all, that guy's not even a fireman. Okay, he's wearing the uniform, but he is not he's never been in a fire. He's never stayed at a fire station. He has not done the job, so he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I was like, all this doom and gloom, guys. It is a good job. It's a good career. you can live your best life doing this job. And, yeah, bad things happen, but we have outlets for that. We have resources for that. And of course, I had very limited knowledge at that time. But, nowadays, like, I just kind of Donald Trump everything. I get the best person for everything and say, you're in charge of that, you're in charge of that. So now I've got Sarah, and she's running that whole side of it.
So where did you find Sarah, and is this part of you added this or someone else? Maybe I missed that.
So she came up with the Family Academy. It's kind of evolved over the last couple of years.
But I mean, where was she at before? I mean, and then is this new to the nation? Do other departments have this?
Not many. It's kind of a new thing to have an embedded licensed clinical social worker working for your department. Not many departments are doing that. So it is kind of a new thing nationwide. But I think it's going to grow because there's so much emphasis on mental health now. Yeah. But yeah, she's like actually making her part of the team and then developing this whole cognitive performance thing. She and I came up with that together. Well, I say we did. I just kind of told her I wanted her to do it, and she's like, "Okay, I'll figure it out." But yeah, she's been pretty instrumental.
Do you think this will cut some recruits out based on whatever she finds in her testing, her pre-testing?
I don't think so. I think it'll only embolden them, and make them feel better about what they're going through, because they're going to go through hell. It's the toughest academy in the country. Marines who've been through it have told me that physically it was tougher than Marine Corps boot.
Get out of here! That is amazing.
They said the head game wasn't quite as bad as the Marines, but physically it was more grueling, because you're just doing it like 65 pounds of gear every single day, just about every day.
Well, what I like about you is it's the one thing I gather from him is like, man, if it's not effective, I'm not here to beat you up.
Right.
I'm here to make you better, and that's what I love about your attitude about this whole thing is we want to make it tough, but not to beat you. That's not the point of this.
Yeah.
One thing I also love about you is and Brett, I know you're gonna love this, because he's all about data. Let's see if we can empirically look at this and say, are we getting better? Let's put a baseline, and are the techniques that we're using getting better? Tell us a little bit about, because you were telling me, the data here locally on grabs, on officers or firemen not being injured versus what you're seeing in the rest of the country. What have you seen since you implemented your training program as far as data?
Well, I know that our department is making more grabs than just about any other department our size, as far as I can tell from the data that I've looked at. And I can tell you in 2022, which is the last time I looked at the hard data, we made 26 grabs that year, which is already a lot. That's more than 2 a month. And all but 2 of those are still alive, and the 2 who aren't were suicides. So basically what that tells me, and what I tell the recruits, is if you're a resident of Oklahoma City and you're trapped in a house fire, we're going to find you. We're going to get you out, But we can only do that through these very aggressive techniques that we teach in the academy. Now, a lot of departments across the country have gone the opposite direction. They're getting they call it safer, and it probably is safer for the firemen. But there was this study that came out in 2012. It's 12 or 13, but there's this group, Underwriter Laboratories, paired up with the FSRI, the Firefighter Safety Research Institute, and then the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and they did all these test burns. And what they found was that if you fight fire from the outside, like apply water through a window from the outside, you make temperatures drop throughout the structure. It's going to make things for firefighters safer. It's going to make things safer for civilians who are trapped. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything, but looking at the number of firefighter fatalities, line of duty deaths from then till now, the number has remained pretty constant. So these techniques aren't making things safer for firefighters. However, the number of civilian deaths has risen by over 1,000 a year. So before the study came out, it was about 3,000 deaths a year. Now it's over 4,000. And so I can't help but think, like, if guys are hesitating to go in, then that's got to be a reason for it, And I don't know. I mean, I know I didn't join the fire service to fight fire from the flower bed, But the truth is, we're perfectly safe. People think it's a dangerous job, and statistically, the numbers just don't bear it out. We have about 100 line of duty deaths a year, right? So already, there's 1.2 million firefighters in America. So 100 out of 1.2 million is already pretty safe, you know.
How does that compare? I don't know if you know the numbers, but like the highway patrol.
It's kind of law enforcement as a whole, I think it's pretty close to the same as far as line of duty deaths that we have every year. And it's not necessarily like homicides or officer involved shootings or anything like that. It can be car crash or anything else, but we're about the same. Law enforcement wise, we're around, during National Police Week, there's roughly anywhere from 100 to maybe a little bit over as far as line of duty deaths during that year. And it can be from a wide variety of things. It can be health related on duty. It can be, officer involved shootings or car accidents or something like that. But that's kind of where that sets. And then the flip side of that is how many first responders do we have taking their lives? Right?
Yeah.
How many suicides we have. But it's the calculated risk. And kind of like you said, you didn't join to fight fires from a flower bed, but we know that there's an inherent risk in the jobs that we chose, and if there's somebody in there, our job is to save lives, right? It's not to save a structure. To a point. If you can, fine, but if there's somebody in there, the job is to get that individual out, right? That's what we're getting paid to do, whether it be a fire, whether it be something that law enforcement is involved in. We know there's an inherent risk there, but you weigh that risk and train as hard as you can. I think that's what you guys are doing is you've upped the level of training so that it's not necessarily the risk is still there, but it's not as risky to the firefighter to get the individual out.
Well, what we teach them is, going into a structure that's on fire has inherent dangers, like you're saying. But
I don't know why you want to do that, but
there's no danger that we can't mitigate. We can mitigate anything. If it's too smoky, hot gases in there, cut a hole in the roof, get the smoke out. If the fire's really hot, spray water on it. If it's about to collapse, we can arrest that collapse by putting the fire out. So there's nothing we can't handle. We just have to have the gumption, the wherewithal, the training, the tools, the talent, the training. That's what we need, right? They give me the talent, we give them the tools and the training, and we send them out, and they can do the job. Every department in the country should be training this way, and I can't understand why they don't.
I mean, the numbers are bearing this out, and I'm going to ask probably a question I shouldn't, because I have no idea. I've never worn a uniform. Would you argue that we could be even more aggressive, or you guys could be more aggressive with the training, the talent, and the equipment that you have?
It would be hard for us to get more aggressive than we already are.
What
in
I mean,
Oklahoma City, but nationwide,
yeah.
absolutely, undoubtedly. And I don't care. It doesn't matter if you're like from a small department. Yes, they don't have the resources that I do. Right, we're a big department. We got a huge budget. Right, smaller departments don't have that, but there's nothing stopping them. You can get training on this stuff from YouTube.
Wow.
Just watch the videos and then implement those techniques into your own training, and also get rid of this idea that firefighting is so dangerous and we're going to get in there and get killed. We're not. As long as you're doing everything right. I would argue that being aggressive on the fire ground makes it safer, because we're going to get in faster. We're going to put water on the fire faster. We're going to make
give
everything
confidence,
safer.
right? I mean, you don't want to be overconfident. I mean, I can only imagine what you go through mentally thinking, I can't go in.
Well, honestly, that's never occurred to me. Unless it's just a building made of fire, then we're like, okay, we can't go in there. But I was raised on the department with this aggressive mentality. So, even as a young firefighter, they told me to get in there, I just went, But I was armed with that knowledge that if it's hot, flow water, I mean, it's as simple as that.
You're like a surgeon then. I mean, you're really breaking this down. Okay, well, we've got a bleeder over here, so let's just cauterize that. Okay, now we can approach again. Okay, we've got blood pressure going down. Let's figure out if we need anesthesia to do something to get the. We're going to save this life.
And that right there is what it's all about. Firemen forget. If you ask a fireman, typical fireman, what are you in the business of? They'll say fighting fire. No. We're not here to fight fire. We're here to save lives.
Yep.
Fighting fire is just incidental to that one purpose. We do everything we do on the job is working towards that one goal of saving lives, right? We will let a structure burn to the ground if it means we save someone's life out of it, right? So, and I preach that to my recruits so much. We're not here to fight fire. We're here to save lives, and we'll do whatever it takes to save a life. And so, you'll hear firemen complain, like if someone makes a grab, then another unit will get assigned to EMS. So now somebody's got to take care of this patient. And guys will be like, oh, no, we got EMS. I'm like, dude, you should be partying when you get assigned to EMS because you're doing it. You're doing the job. You're saving that person's life. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as glorious as making the grab, you know, but we're here to save lives, save their life, you know.
It's better than sitting around and waiting for the ME.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you don't want to be doing.
When even on the, I never really thought about this before, but you know, if we're talking about mental health, what must the mental health impact be if you go to a fire and you have to listen to someone die on the interior because you don't have the command to get you in there or the training to get you in there and do your job? That's got to be, man, that's got to be heartbreaking for those guys.
Do you think nationally that there has been a shift in that attitude that we're here to fight fires and not to save lives?
I think it's kind of always been that way.
I think it's always been that way?
Yeah, because that's what we train so much on.
Yeah.
You know, so much of our training is based on fighting fires. Now we do get quite a bit of training on EMS as well, but you put the gear on, you want to use the gear, you want to go in there and fight the fire. You know, I'm sure it's the same in pretty much any other job like this, like being a cop. You know, you guys train like probably endlessly on firing your weapon.
Yeah.
But then how often do you actually do it?
Yep.
You know? So I'm sure there's a lot of cops that are just looking for that opportunity.
Yeah.
You know.
But great point too. So what do you do? Like you were telling me that there every week there's a fire that when you were on or is it every day?
Oh, when I was at Eights?
Yeah.
Yeah, on average, and during fire season, we averaged about one fire a shift. So, and it wasn't like some shifts we wouldn't have any, but then others we might have 4 or 5, you know. But a buddy of mine named Mike Amelia, he kind of did the numbers, and he said, yeah, it works out to about one fire a shift.
So how do you stay sharp in the non-fire season? Is that the Mid-America Fools and what they're doing to continue the training?
Well, the onus is on every company officer to make sure that his people train at the station all the time. You know, you should be training on something every day.
Every day?
Every day, yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, well, we're going to take another quick break, and then we'll finish on the other side of this. Man, this is really cool, man. I appreciate this.
Good deal.
All right, welcome back to the Scars podcast. We're going to final section here, and we're going to start it off hot.
Let's go.
Do it.
All right. What has changed over your generation in the Highway Patrol and how they're trained, and then also how it's changed for you? We had a stint in the last 5 years where there was a lot of what I would say, let's lower the standards. Or am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong. I think that I think it goes back to, I think the perception is that and we ran what we considered a high stress academy with the patrol, right? There was a reason for everything that we did. Now there's some that went through it that still think that it was crap, but we wanted to push both physically, mentally, and emotionally. We wanted to push them in a controlled environment to their absolute breaking point. We wanted to know what that was, right? So that they knew what it was. And once they knew what that was, then they knew that they could, can I go past that point? It gives them a goal to shoot to, whether it be, again, physically, mentally, or emotionally. And I think that has been because of perception and because of public appearance. Some will say a softer generation. I don't think it's a softer generation. I think it's a different generation, right? Mm-hmm. I think they have different attributes and strengths that my generation or our generation didn't. But everything that we did served a purpose. So I think that there was because of perception from the public and from some that actually went through the academies that didn't feel like that it benefited them, I think that they've gone in, they tried to change things. And I think on the law enforcement side of it, because of the public and some high profile cases and stuff, I think that we could possibly even see a trend that it's going to get more officers hurt because they're going to start second guessing things as opposed to being more aggressive and knowing that they have to do certain things in order to stay alive and to protect the public.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think a lot of that too is people, like, society has become very litigious,
Very.
Yes.
And I think a lot of departments don't train like we do because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble, someone's going to get sued, whatever. We're very, very cognizant of that, in my academy. One of my rules for my instructors is you never attack the person, you always attack the performance. And we talk about that a lot. And if I hear it going on, I'll immediately put a stop to it. Like we just can't afford to have any kind of Title VII violations, anything like that. I won't allow it. I won't tolerate it. But that doesn't mean you can't still run a tough academy.
Yeah.
So, what about the rest of the country, though? What are you seeing from that standpoint? I mean, I see what I see, and sometimes social media is great, and sometimes it's a liar. Most of the time, it's a liar, right? So, what are you seeing from the rest of the departments? I mean, obviously, they're not even up to your standards to begin with. Right. I mean, maybe to your point, your training program wouldn't even work in a different state.
Oh, I know for a fact that many departments would refuse to train. They do refuse to train the way we do. So I don't know that the standard has gotten lower because it's just always been that low.
Yeah,
you know, for the
it's
for
just
sure.
been there.
Yeah, like if you again, the IFSTA, it's the kind of the governing body for firefighter certification, but those standards are so low, and the whole reason is they want just anybody to be able to say that you're a fireman. You know, if you can meet this ridiculously low standard. For example, I think the standard for throwing a ladder to a window for a rescue is like 10 minutes. Well, for us, the fire's out by that time.
Yeah.
You know, so, my standard in the academy is 1 minute. In fact, my standard from a distance of about 60 feet, I want the whole crew off the rig, ladder thrown, and a guy in the window on air doing a search within a minute, 15 seconds. And that's what my recruits, they'll meet that standard, and people are just, no one wants to go beyond the IFSTA standard. And I don't understand why. I think a lot of it is they just don't want to put the work in. They don't want to, I can afford to lose recruits out of my academy. In fact, we know hiring them, we're going to lose 10 to 15%. But a lot of smaller departments, they may hire 3 guys because they need 3 guys, so they can't,
But you know why that is? And I strongly believe this, even like, I guess I'm Generation X. I'm not sure what generation I am. I'm somewhere in there, but I'm definitely not Generation Z. And I see the Generation Z, my son, my older son, they're wanting to be men. They've got your sons, and they want something they can be proud of.
Yeah.
And so I can almost see the word gets around. Hey, you want to get through Major Smith's class? That ain't no joke.
Yeah.
Sign me up. I want to do this.
And I think there are guys like that who intentionally come to our academy because they know it's challenging. I mean, word's gotten out by this point.
Yeah.
This is my 11th class coming up, and so I think I know for certain firemen are leaving other departments to come to Oklahoma City just for that because they want that challenge. They want to do the job. But yeah, I think there is this kind of. It feels like a return to masculinity, maybe, because for so long that any masculinity was termed toxic masculinity.
Yeah,
and it's just silly, like like the culture in the fire service is changing, even on my department, because stuff that guys got away with when I first came on, you'd get fired if not thrown in jail now, and that stuff just doesn't happen anymore, and it's a good thing. We're becoming more professional. We're evolving. But that doesn't mean that, we can't still do a tough job in a tough way, like a lot of old timers, I'll get in this argument because I say old timers, I'm an old timer now with 17 years on the job, and I'm one of the old guys.
You don't feel like it though, do you?
No, that's weird.
You definitely don't look like it, man.
Yeah, thanks. They'll say everything's become kinder, gentler. And I say, no, it hasn't. Show me in the SOPs where it says be kind and gentle. Because I do things the way I do them, and nobody would describe me as kind or gentle. But I haven't gotten in trouble. I don't break any rules. For the most part.
You did that when you were a kid.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not getting the department sued.
Yeah.
And here's the thing too: when I was out there as a lieutenant or as a company officer out in the field, people would ask like, "Oh, what's it like working for Cort?" They're like, "Man, he's laid back. He's really cool. He's just a good dude." So I would challenge anybody to find anyone who's ever worked for me and said they hated it. Most of my crews, I run a good crew and I had good guys and they liked being at work. They liked to go out and train, and people want to be challenged, especially young people.
Yes.
They crave discipline, especially if you're in a uniformed service. Obviously they crave discipline. they want to be told what to wear, you know? So like give them that discipline that they want.
You know, you hear this thing, oh man, this generation's just lost. They're not as good as the one before. That's bull. In any generation, there's probably 10 or 15% that just don't want to do anything. But by and large, we want to go achieve. We're Americans. We want to achieve. That's what it's in our DNA. So challenge us. And one of the things that you do that's really impressive, because there's this idea that we can't have just anybody on the fire department. But one of the things I like what you do, is that you look at it and say, what if I had somebody who was 100 pounds and 5'4"?
Yeah.
How do I get that person effective enough to throw a 72-pound ladder in that minute and 15 seconds to get in that window and get out, get going? You say, give me something, I'll show you how I can do it.
Yes, absolutely. And that's I hate when people say there's no solution, there's no way. No, there's definitely a way. Just tell me the roadblocks that I have to get past, you know. And you said 400 pounds. The smallest recruit I ever had was 5 foot nothing and weighed 110 pounds when she showed up to the academy. And yeah, she struggled in the beginning, but she ended up being one of the best recruits out of that class. Her name's Victoria Penny. She's still killing it to this day.
How long has she been in?
She was in 21, so probably about 3-4 years.
Is she still just rocking?
I mean, yeah, everybody loves her. Every crew she's been on, they're like, man, every crew should have a Victoria Penny on it. And she was, I mean, I saw her doing things that, you know, the 6'3", 220 guy next to her was struggling with.
Get out.
I'm not kidding, man. That girl is part grizzly, you know. And but those people who want to accept a challenge and then, you know, see it through, they 100% of the time they make the best firefighters. There's a woman who works for me. She's a lieutenant. She's my lead instructor for the academy. Her name's Chelsea Dillon. And you talk about dynamite comes in small packages. You know, she's like, I don't know, maybe 5'4", probably 140. But I've watched her just tear the hell out of a group of recruits of huge, like, knuckle-dragging dudes, you know. And anybody who knows, like, I mean, hell, I'll say it, she's the best fireman I know. Everyone who knows Chelsea Dillon is trying to be as good as her, including me.
She's setting the bar.
Yes, for everybody, not just for women. For everybody, you know. And it's everything from her physicality, her intensity, her intelligence, her, you know, like her attitude, which I've never seen her display a bad attitude, negative attitude at all. And she wants the challenge, you know. And that's the thing that these people have in common. They all want a challenge. So let's give them a challenge, you know. Let's keep making it harder. Yeah, I think the best classes I've had, the kind of the attitude of the class was make it harder, keep making it harder.
They wanted that.
Yeah, they asked me. The first class I ever had back in 15, we were doing survival training, and I was just making stuff up. I'm like combining these drills and making it harder and harder. And it was like Wednesday of that week, and they're like, sir, can you make something just really hard? I was like, I have. Nobody else does this stuff, you know. And they're like, no, make something that's just like impossible. I was like, okay. And I went home, and it took me like an hour and a half, and I drew up this plan for this drill, which should have been impossible. Or if it was going to be possible, you would have to bring an extra air bottle and do a hot swap on your bottles. And I told them, it's like, okay, we put it together on Thursday afternoon just to see what it looked like. And one of the companies like, can we try it real quick? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. So they took extra bottles. They went through the whole thing, and they made it. But it took 47 minutes, but they made it. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And so then everybody wanted to do it. So then the next day, I was like, yeah, okay, we'll all do it, you know. And I told them, if you guys all do it, you can name the drill, and we'll just make it part of the curriculum. And they all did it. And now to this day, every class I've trained has done the Mean 15 drill. Like the ultimate survival drill.
But you're challenging, right? And I think that's where the easy way is to say, hey, we're just going to do everything the way that we've always done it, and we know that we're going to get success out of it. We're still getting training and stuff. But that's not what we want, right? Mm-hmm. Now, there are firefighters, police officers, and different that they'll just kind of go through the motions. We want to be challenged. There's a certain pride that comes along with try to break me, and let's see what happens. You might break me, and that's okay, but I'm going to leave everything on the table, right? But if I beat this, then you know what, I'm going to walk around just a little bit taller. Then when you get out in the real world and you get in a position that looks like that it's insurmountable and you can't, now your brain is going to kick in and say, hey, we once thought that was undoable too, right?
Yep.
That we couldn't do that. We just got to slow down. Let's methodically think through this. Let's put a plan together and let's make it happen. Let's figure out a way to get that person out or to get whatever it is. That is where, I mean, that is true training. It's not just repetition. Yeah. Repetitions are good for certain things, but that's training every aspect of it, including the mind, and getting that mind to think outside the box and say, yeah, we can get through this. That's what saves lives, both for the firefighters, but also for the people that are trapped, right? You can't train for every scenario. It's just impossible to do, because no two scenarios when you get out in the real world are alike. But you're training the brain to say, okay, let's think about this.
You can train a mindset, you know, and I want every one of my recruits to leave the academy feeling like there's nothing they can't do if they're in a set of gear, you know. And we don't hit the mark every single time. You know, I don't run a perfect academy. I never will. But I see enough success that I'm pretty happy with it, and I see my recruits leaving with confidence, and that's the biggest key. I want them not only competent, but I want them confident.
Yep.
When they leave there.
Yep. That's awesome. All right, tell me about the Shark Tank.
So the Shark Tank is an event that happens on the first day of the academy. They show up to the schoolhouse, and the command staff is there, and they talk for a little while. And then the training chief, he has a few words for him, and then he hands control of the class over to me with a charge to have them ready to graduate by whatever date. And I say, thank you, sir. And then I'll tell him, okay, this academy starts now. I have a few words for him, and then that speech always ends with, from this point on, anytime you're given an imperative statement, a command, an order of any kind, you will not think, you will simply obey. You will say, yes, sir, and then you will execute. Does everybody understand? They say, yes, sir. I said, okay. And I'll repeat
Starting off good.
I'll repeat that whole thing. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Okay, welcome to Oklahoma City Fire. And I say, okay, everybody go ahead and stand up. And they never say, yes, sir. And then I just start screaming, you know, going crazy, yelling at them, cussing at them, you know, whatever. And then the rest of my crew will come in. They'll join in, you know. We tell them, get out in the hall. They'll do like a wall sit out there, and then we take them down to the gym. And at this point, they've been getting yelled at by like 5 or 6 people. We get them down to the gym with their uniforms for inventory, and as soon as they hit the door, there's like 12 more people down there, and everybody is they just unleash hell, you know. And every time, like, we'll call out a uniform item, they have to hold it out, you know, arms parallel to the deck. And I don't care if you're holding a sock cap. After a while, you're going to start shaking. Tough. And if they'll start to drop it, they get screamed at, you know. And I mean, it's a truly, like, terrifying experience, you know. But it's good. So what we're doing there is we're instilling that stress. We have to manufacture the stress, right? Because we can't just set the schoolhouse on fire every day. So that's just one of the ways that we manufacture the stress, because we want them to recognize that they are being stressed, respond to it, you know, not just react, but truly respond to it and mitigate it, you know, because that's what we do in a fire. We mitigate the stressor. Yeah, that whole event lasts about 3 hours, 3-4 hours.
3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
That's.
Then we take them up to the bunker room, because now they've got their PPE as well. So we teach them how to put I've got like a template, and they have to put all their gear in there. I give them 10 minutes to get all your gear put in exactly like this one locker. And then they go up to the classroom, and me and my guys will inspect it, and we'll find the ones like that are screwed up, and we'll leave those in the locker. And then everyone that's perfect, we rip it out, we tornado the whole thing, and then we bring them back down and say, okay, now you got 10 minutes to fix this, you know. And then after that, we take them out for their first PT session, which is just basically them just getting smoked for about 3 hours till the end of the day.
Now there was a funny rumor that went around.
Oh yeah, the first Shark Tank I did. Yeah, the rumor got around that I was punching recruits down there, which firemen don't believe anything. So I was like, I can't believe you idiots thought I'm down here hitting recruits. But yeah, and there were other stuff too, like people were saying, you know, people were screaming inappropriate things, whatever. So anyway, in an effort to not only quell the rumors, but also to improve the Shark Tank experience, I invited Sarah Parks, our clinical social worker, down there, and I just wanted to hear her notes. Everybody thought I was crazy to invite her down there because here we got the department shrink is going to watch this. And,
He's going to hit Sarah Park.
But she was down there and she was watching everything. She took great notes and she had a ton of feedback for me, and I was really appreciative of it because we were doing a few things wrong. There was one kid, I don't know who it was, but somebody was running around there and they dropped a belt, and he was clear on the other side of the room, and I grabbed it and I started swinging it around. I was like, "Whose is it? Whose is it?" And I started popping it, like your dad does when he's about to whip you with a belt. And she's like, "Yeah, that might be problematic." And I was like, "Why?" My dad did that. And she's like, "Well, first of all, that could be triggering for somebody because it's definitely a threat or whatever, but also there's racial implications there." And I was like, "Oh my God, I never would have thought of that." And so things like that she told me, she's giving me all these notes, and I was like, "Just stop. I want you to come in, meet with my team for about 2 hours. We're going to go over all this stuff, And it gave us a lot of guidance. And, because we're not there to just beat up recruits.
Right.
So the last thing I want is to truly, offend someone, in a, what would you call it, a legal sort of way.
It's counterproductive.
Yeah.
It's probably not. It's not necessary.
No.
You're still going to accomplish greatness by doing this exercise without having to do that.
Yeah, and it's as simple, I tell my guys, like I said before, never attack the person, only attack the performance. So if I got an overweight recruit who's slower than everybody else, I don't say, "Hey, fat boy, speed up." I just say, "Move faster." That's it. Just move faster. Now I say it very loud, but that's all I say.
So did it evolve? You still do it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got one coming up on the 19th.
Man.
September 19th, next Shark Tank. Get your tickets.
You can buy the whole seat, but you're not going to sit in any of it. So let's turn to a little bit of the mental side of this thing, and just what you do to prepare, or what is the preparation that you set these guys up for? And I know you had the Chris Farley guy come in and talk to the wives, which doesn't sound very productive, but do you soften the training a little bit in that on the mental side, and how do you handle that?
I wouldn't say we soften the training. Well, like I said before, Sarah, she comes in as the cognitive performance coach, twice a week. I think we haven't done it before, but I think that's going to have a huge impact on the mental and emotional side of it. I think if I'm being totally honest, I've just never really spent that much time on that part of it, because for me the mental part is, you hit your limit. Is that really your limit or your perceived limit? Because generally people got more in the tank than they think. So we do build a lot of mental toughness, grit, whatever you want to call it, through the training, just because we keep pushing and pushing and pushing. So that's, until now, that was pretty much the extent of my mental training in the academy.
Well, I would say, Brett, go ahead.
No, it's and that's one of those things, and that's a great point. We do the same thing. When I oversaw a couple of our academies at the patrol, but you want to push them up to whatever that breaking point is, and what they think their breaking point is normally not where it's at. Right? It's normally well past that, and so again, there's a sense of pride and everything else that comes along with, "Hey, man, I thought I was done, but I did so much more after that." But the other side of that is, I say, if I've said it once, I've probably said it 100 times. The patrol, they taught me how to dry fight and shoot. They did a great job, right? But they didn't tell me about. They told me about, but they didn't train me. And they didn't tell me how I was going to feel after the first death notification that I did, the first door that I had to go knock on and tell a mom and a dad that, "Hey, there's been a bad accident, and your son's not coming home tonight." That type of deal, and not just from that, but when I went home and went to bed that night, what that was gonna do to me. That mental training or anything, there was absolutely nothing for that, and it's pretty simple stuff. Whether it be box breathing, which is stuff that we use doing the job.
Box
right?
breathing.
Box breathing. So it's just a controlled breathing technique to bring stress and stuff down. So whether you're in a gunfight or going into a fire, if you feel your heart rate going up and getting a little anxious, then it's just a simple breathing technique. They call it combat breathing, box breathing, whatever it is. Well, that same thing can be done when you start having triggers and you start having flashbacks and different things like that come along with the job. We weren't taught any of that. We were given absolutely no tools to deal with the mental stress that came along with the traumas and stuff they're inevitable, right? That's not going to change. we weren't given any of that stuff. So starting implementing that into the academies and stuff is absolutely paramount, right? Because we're training our firefighters and our police officers and paramedics, corrections officers, everybody, how to do the job. We're just not training them on what the job's going to do to them mentally and emotionally. And we want to be well-rounded. I know right now, I've been out since 22 or whatever it is. When a firefighter shows up or I have to call 911 for a police officer or paramedic, I want them at the top of their game, both in technique and skill, but also mentally and emotionally. I don't want them struggling with anything else. I want them, my life depends on it, my kids, my wife, whoever it is. I want them at the top of their game. And if they're not getting trained in that mental and emotional side of it, then they're not trained to the fullest of their potential.
And there are things I do to try to, to me, if you're confident in your skills and your abilities and all that can only have a positive mental health impact.
Absolutely.
And I do try to reinforce that in the recruits in several different ways. Like if I see a recruit who's doing it, like getting through everything, but they don't look confident to me, I'll go and I'll separate them and say, you're doing the job that all the people around you are doing. You're doing the exact same thing. You're doing it just as well. You belong here. You have to know it in here. You have to know it in here.
Your confidence building is what you're doing throughout you're breaking them down. I mean, just like the military, right?
Yeah.
When going to boot camp, you're getting, and then by the end of the boot camp, you got a big S on your chest and you're ready to charge a machine gun hill. Same thing with what you're doing. And if I'm hearing this right, and I think this probably is right, is that you're the guy that pushes them to the point where they didn't think they could go any further, and they did.
Right.
And you don't ever want to take that hat off, so to speak. It's almost internally you're training this, and then there has to be a separate force. So when you do experience that tough day, there's somebody else that you go talk to.
Right.
And it's almost like a maintenance program.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I tell the recruits, like on ladders. Initially, when they start walking with a ladder, they look like a baby giraffe, but then a couple weeks later, they're walking, a few hundred meters with it on their shoulder. And I'll ask them, say, hey, so is it getting easier? And they're like, yes, sir. It's like, no, it's not. That ladder weighs just as much as it did 2 weeks ago. You're just getting better. You're getting stronger.
The technique too, right?
Yeah.
You're learning the technique.
You're learning the technique, yeah. And then towards the end of the academy, I love this. I always ask them, like, if I'd asked you, 15 weeks ago, if you thought you'd be able to do in one day what you guys are now accomplishing, would you have believed me? And every time they're like, no, I would have said it's impossible. I probably would have quit. If I'd known that was going to be the standard or the expectation, I probably would have quit. I was like, but you're doing it, Because to me, if you show somebody that they're capable of something that they thought was impossible, that's how you inspire greatness in people.
Yeah, absolutely. You set the bar, and we just want to break that. We want to go to the next rung on that ladder, break that glass ceiling, so to speak. Do you feel like there's days that you had in the field and it was a tough one, that a place, if you could, instead of going directly home to your family, there was a stopgap in there to sort of get your mind back right? Would that have been helpful, or would that be helpful?
Oh, I think absolutely it would be. You're always going to have tough days, I mean, I was on the dive team, and they call us rescue divers, but there's no such thing as a rescue dive. It's always a recovery. And I still have like mental images of like, I don't know if you remember that big tornado came through, swept that family of Guatemalans into the Oklahoma River. Yep. Like 13 of them died. Yeah, we recovered all the children.
Oh my gosh!
Drowned. And I still remember the 4-year-old and the 3-year-old. They're both like water bodies are gross. I mean, they're the worst, and they were just bloated and I don't want to get graphic, but it's a hard thing to look at, So if you're not, you got to have some means of I'm dispelling that, I guess. So you got to be able to do something.
Processing.
Yeah, and the crew I was on, we that wasn't us. We weren't looking for that. Like the chaplain came by after we found those kids, and just said he's, because we've been in the water for days, maybe weeks at that point, like looking for all these family members. And I remember he came by. He's like, I just want to get a finger on the pulse, guys. And everybody's like, we're fine, Chappie. And he sat for a couple minutes, and then he just left. But I never really. I'm almost like nervous about retirement because I've seen some guys who are retired, and is that what I have to look forward to? You know, when I finally punch out, is that what
That's
come rushing?
exactly
there is actually something to that, and even kind of knowing and being in the field that I'm in, I had an awesome career. Right, I was very active, did about everything you could do within the patrol to a certain point. But even knowing that and what I had felt like dealing with my traumas going up to that point, I wasn't ready when I retired for what was going to happen to me. And I thought for a second that I'm like, this is miserable. I don't. And the issue with it is I went, relatively speaking, I went 26 years and some change and didn't sleep a whole lot, right? Well, what does our brain do when we sleep? It starts healing itself.
That's right.
So when I retired at a certain point where I was sleeping more, I started having a ton of flashbacks. I started having a ton of triggers and everything else, and I couldn't figure out why. And I'm talking to, he's actually a California retired trooper, and I'm talking to him. I'm kind of saying, man, he goes, you know what, same thing. He goes, why do you think that's happening? Like, I don't know. And he goes, because you're sleeping. Now your brain's trying to heal itself. Your brain's trying to do what God made it to do. You just haven't come off of, high alert for the last 26 years. That now your brain's trying to fix stuff, and all these images and stuff that you've just been pushing down and hadn't been dealing with, now it's starting to come back up. Now it doesn't happen with everybody, and it's not, if somebody's listening, just know that it might happen, but that wasn't anything that I was prepared for. Yeah. Whereas if I was dealing with that stuff as it happened through my career, then there's a good chance that maybe it might have still happened, but maybe not to the level that it happened, and as much as many events came back. Because there was so many of them. There was 2 significant events that I knew because it about broke me, right? Losing a partner was a huge one. That it got bad on duty to where I had a partner come up to me and say, "Hey, Brett, you're not in a good place. This isn't going to work out for you. It's causing issues at home. It's causing issues at work. I was doing stupid stuff." To where I knew that I was working on that one issue. And there was some cumulative stress that we dealt with there, but not to the extent that it needed to be. Well, and again, the traumas are going to, so it's just going to continue to stack up. And if you don't have the tools and you're not willing to deal with those as you go through your career, there's a breaking point somewhere. There's a breaking point, right? Or either you're just going to live miserable. Mm-hmm. So you can either deal with it as it happens or you can get through your career, and it might come out at work, it might come out at home, or when you retire, when your brain starts trying to really process stuff and you kind of take a load off, it'll catch up with you then, and it'll look like, multiple different things. You'll turn to, the potential there is to turn to alcohol or drugs or whatever to deal with it. It can end in divorce, it can end in domestic abuse, it can end ultimately in suicide, whatever it is, right? Or you're just going to live a miserable life during your retirement, right? And just live with it.
How sad is that?
That's not okay.
No.
Right? You sign up to be a public servant and to be that lifeline for somebody. Some of us get the opportunity to do it during our career. Some don't, but we can play a certain part of it. So we're sacrificing ourselves physically. It's hard on the body, right? At some point it is a young man's game. Yeah. Right? But we're sacrificing that. We're sacrificing our mental and emotional health. I mean, I don't remember signing anything when I signed on with Highway Patrol say that I've got to give all that up to live miserable for the rest of my life. Well, the training and stuff takes care of me staying alive on duty. But, man, I've got to be very proactive and stuff with my mental and emotional health so that when I did retire, I was in a good place. And I thought I was in a better place than I really was. Still struggle, right? But I've got tools and different things and modalities and stuff that I use to stay in a good place. But that retirement side of it that's a real deal, right? Well, yeah. And you're not crazy thinking that. There's a lot of guys out there that think the same thing.
The weird thing though is, and I'm sure a lot of guys are like this, I don't feel like I'm bothered by anything I've seen. I never have really. Even those dead kids. It's like, well, just gotta do a job. So either I'm really adept at just handling stuff myself, or The more terrifying option is I'm going to retire and be miserable, and it's all going to come back at once. And I honestly don't know what's going to, what to expect, because I've got plans for retirement already.
And Cort, I think that's a great point. I wouldn't have said. Now you asked my wife and kids, and they probably would have disagreed with this. I wouldn't have said that I was necessarily in a bad place, because I was going back to work. That's where I was most comfortable. I was at the time. I was working in criminal interdiction. I had a K-9. I was on the SWAT team. I mean, I was living my best life, but I had no idea that I was not in a good place. Right?
I feel like it's a little bit like you got a set of tires on, and car's moving pretty good. I think they're fine. All of a sudden, you finally get a new pair of tires on there. You're like, man,
well,
those tires are really bad.
So the analogy of the boiling frog. Have you ever heard that analogy?
Uh-huh.
Trauma's kind of the same way. Because our bodies, as we go through it, I can remember my first pursuit I was ever in. Right now, I think Lisa Porch was my dispatcher, and she made fun of me because apparently she said I was screaming and yelling on the radio. I don't really think that I was. My anxiety or my stress might have been a little high, but you know what? You go listen to my third or fourth pursuit that I was in, and I'm talking on the radio just like I'm talking right now. Right? Well, my body was adapting to my stress and stuff being at a higher level, where my voice wasn't shaking and different things like that. Trauma in first responders is kind of the same way. We just think, hey, this is part of the job. And it's not like this for everybody. There's people that they have different things in their life to where they do deal with it. So if somebody's listening out there, again, I'm not saying if you don't feel anything, I'm not saying that, you're really screwed up. You're not admitting it, right? So I'm not saying that to you either. But there's some research that shows that as we go through our career and we start piling those traumas and stuff on, our body adjusts to it, but it doesn't mean that it's not there, right? It doesn't mean that it's not affecting us. We might not see it, but if we went out and asked our spouse, we asked our kids or those closest to us, did they see a change? Mm-hmm. Have you seen a change in me since I've started this career, right? The career is going to change you. But we have to be just cognizant that, you know what, I might not be in a good place. So we encourage, through the foundation and different trainings and stuff we do, we encourage people to, even if you think you're in a good spot, there's nothing wrong with going and sitting with a counselor and talking about a couple of things, and you'll know then whether or not you were in a good place and you'd really dealt with it. We see a ton of stuff that we should never see, right? Well, we should never see.
Can you make that trauma acute, or is it going to become chronic? And the only way you make it acute is if you deal with it.
Yeah.
In some manner, and that's what we're doing at Warriors Rest. I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
Can you remember, maybe a two-part question? Can you remember a time in your career where you were in a bad spot and you can't figure out why you got out of it?
You talking about like emotionally, mentally?
No. A beam that almost fell but shouldn't have fell, a roof that should have collapsed but it didn't, anything like that.
Yeah, there was, in my career, there's only been 2 fires ever where I thought, okay, we're fixing to die. And one of them, well, interestingly, one of them I look back on now and describe it as the best fire I was ever in, even though like we fought our way halfway back into this warehouse. And it was fire everywhere, and it was a tall ceiling, but the smoke was banked down to our heads, and that meant there was 15 feet of smoke up there, and probably fire over our heads that we just couldn't see. And it was hot, just I don't know, hotter than I can describe. And somebody popped open a door on the other side, so unbeknownst to us at the time, that made everything worse. Everything that was put out behind us was now back on fire.
It got oxygen.
Wow.
Yeah, including the door we came through. And I was like, oh, this is bad, And so we had to go back, put all that out. The other one, which was actually worse, we were in an apartment fire, and it had been going really bad. Like the guys who were in there looking for the fire, they couldn't find it. And we had just come off an assignment. And one of the chiefs on scene, he knew our crew. And so he asked, hey, can you guys just swap bottles and get back in there and find the fire? I'm like, yeah, no problem. So we went in, and we didn't have a hand line, but there was a hose team behind us. And so we're going in. It was smoke banked down to the floor. It was really hot. And we're pulling ceiling and, making our way back. It's getting hotter, so that's good. We know we're going the right way. and we had a helmet cam in there. You couldn't see anything, but you could hear it. But we kept saying like, "Hey, where's the nozzle? Where's the nozzle?" And then somebody would flow water for a couple seconds, and then continue on, and then somebody cut a hole in the roof right over our heads, and then for some reason, somebody turned a fan into the door, which is usually what we do for positive pressure ventilation, But in this case, it was very bad because we call it a flow path. They introduced fresh air into there. And I mean, in the span of about 5 seconds, the audio went from, hey, where's the nozzle, to open the nozzle, open the nozzle. And I mean, we were like trying to claw our way through the floor. And I remember getting down as low as I could, and I could see the door, and I could see, there's a couple inches I could see my other two guys, and my officers at the door, and he's like, everybody, come on, let's get out, get out. And I remember feeling okay, there's one guy, go, there's the other, okay, let's go. And we got out, and the hose team, without letting anybody know, they just left. We had no idea. And they said they left because fire was, rolling out over their heads. And that was a bad one. There was a lot of screaming in the parking lot after that, But yeah, so I know exactly why things went wrong on those fires. We've analyzed them quite a bit, but yeah, I don't know why necessarily. I don't know what got us out necessarily, other than just our training.
No secret to these questions for me is that I feel like there is a creator, and there is somebody that's out there watching over us. And I think that there are miracles that happen. In the situation that you're in, you can't explain it necessarily of why it happened or why you got out of there. I mean, the story that you just told about the nozzle not being located and then it's full blast nozzle, I've seen those nozzles. You can't control it. It creates a pressure. How do you control that? And so, but now you get out and you don't know why. You should have not got out of there. I mean, would that be a possible conclusion? Possibly,
yeah. We could have gotten trapped. If we were a little further back in, it could have gone really bad.
Yeah. Well, guys, I can't thank you enough for coming in here and talking to us, and you're doing amazing work, brother.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
I mean, the things that you're doing for our state and our city, really our city and then our state. And then I just pray that someone in a different department hears this and reaches out. And this is something that's very important to you. And I want, real quick before we close out, you are so adamant about training that in your mind's eye, you can't understand why more people aren't doing this, and that they're not charging a fee. There has to be a nominal fee, but these thousands of dollars. Tell us a little bit about why you feel that way.
Well, I just think that in the fire service, there should be no such thing as proprietary knowledge. If you've got some information or some techniques or anything that could potentially help save lives, why wouldn't you just share it? Especially with other firemen. We're all doing the same job. So yeah, whenever I've got I've got my manual for running the academy. I've got every drill that we do. If people want it, I'll just email it to them. I think I've sent it out probably 200 times now. As far away as Canada, guys have emailed me asking for it. So,
how do people get a hold of you if they want to get that information?
Yeah, just email me at firesmith405@gmail.com.
Say it one more time.
Firesmith405@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thanks, Cort. One more thing.
Yeah, no, Cort. I applaud what it is that you're doing, and with having two young men that are getting ready to enter into this, right? That is my prayer for them, is that whether they come to Oklahoma City or work or wherever they end up, is that they've got somebody that's as passionate about the training as you are.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I'm praying for you is that there's somebody right behind you that takes this torch up and continues on when you retire.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully, I've got a couple people I'm kind of grooming for that. So I've got 8 years left till I retire. So chances are I'm probably going to stay at training until I go. But hopefully things will work out to where I can get the right people to take it over when I leave.
Well, you keep pushing the envelope. That's what you do. You keep getting more creative.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening.